Hey, Virginia.
Good morning.
Good morning. Did you watch any of the House elections and stuff?
Oh, yeah. It was mesmerizing, wasn't it?
How much did you enjoy as the parliamentarian and Robert Rules person?
I know. She was wonderful.
No, I was wondering how much you enjoyed that. Were you quizzing yourself on what you would do in that situation and such?
Oh, I don't know. She had such calm, such demeanor. She was really good.
Yeah.
She's over at the Smithsonian. Did you hear her background? She had fabulous background.
Look at Lou eating. What are you eating, Lou?
Blueberries.
Okay.
I was supposed to have a blood test. The doctor never bothered to order it
Oh,
at 9 o'clock.
did everyone have a great holiday?
Yeah, where are you? Are you actually with the beaches, or are you still in the?
Yeah, I just found the backgrounds on here on Google. No, I'm back in Florida, back in Lake Park Shore. But I thought I'd try a different background.
I didn't know you were in Lake Clark Shores.
Yes, you did.
Did I?
Well, a couple of years ago, you talked about your office being up the street, I think.
Okay. Well, a couple years ago. By the way, I haven't been there for 13 years.
Oh, okay. Then it's been a while.
That seems like yesterday.
And that firm just closed.
Where's your office now?
Yamato, Boca.
Oh, well, that is quite a while ago then.
Yeah, 4.5 miles from home. I'm loving it.
Oh, that is nice.
Hello, everybody. Well, all right. Good morning, everybody. For our little chit-chatting, our little tea circle, we're going to stop. We're going to enjoy Virginia's background.
You know, you can all pick a background. Go to options.
It's hard to do that when I'm sitting here.
Right.
Oh, all right.
And by the way, that's a background for me.
Yeah.
I have fun with different backgrounds.
I'm going to call our meeting to order because we have a quorum. And so let's start off with attendance. We'll do in the room and then we'll do online. Mike Guida, please.
Mike Guida, CORC.
Holly Hahn, Office of the General Counsel.
Michael Tubiello, Director of Construction.
Dave Dolan, Facilities Management.
David Porter, CORC.
Barbara Myers, excuse me, Construction Purchasing.
Bill Hukel, CORC.
Matt Cheshire, CORC.
Dorothy Banaszewski, Facilities Construction.
Michael O'Neill, Proctor Construction.
Sam Shannon, CORC.
We're still doing
One second, folks. Go ahead. Introduce
Announce yourself.
yourself.
My name is Elizabeth Leonard with Meteor Education. I'm Christine Gallinopoulos with Air Floor.
Angel Garcia, Facility Construction.
I'm Dick Weiss with Warren Smith. John Levinson, Rel Enterprises, representing Ward Smith and Siskovich Architect.
Okay, online.
Blue Doctor CORC.
Leah Gaines, CORC.
Okay.
Sam Shannon, CORC.
Virginia Ferris, CORC.
Tom Berger, CORC.
And we had Michael Gelfand.
Michael Gelfand's on.
His name is.
So,
He's muted. Okay. All right. Well, we have a quorum. Michael will join us when he joins us.
yes, he's waving at us.
There we go, Michael. We got visual. Coming in for a landing. Not yet, Michael. You're muted.
It went off for a second, so. Space bar.
Okay, Michael, we'll get that.
Michael Gelfand, CORC.
We'll keep going here. Chairman's report. I just had one little item. I just had a smile moment yesterday from the old Seminole Ridge project, and I wanted to share with you. The students have framed up all the walls, the plywood sheathing's going up. We passed all the building inspections. And this was a girl that was going to town with a nail gun on that full sheet of plywood. She and 4 girls were one team putting the sheathing up, and they were just beating the guys like crazy. She took probably about a minute to nail that entire 4x8 sheet of plywood. And she got up and class was over and she started walking towards me. And I said, "You look like you're having way too much fun with that nail gun." And she just went, "Shh, don't tell anybody." She's an AP student. She's got all A's. And her goal is project management in construction. So contractors out there, there's your future project manager who's very eager and obviously now getting skilled in construction. So that's all I had. Any conflict of interest anyone has today on things being reviewed? All right, hearing none. CORC report. I guess there was no feedback, Lou?
I wanted to talk about it for a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
We submitted the CORC report. In the comments section, there was a highlight to pay special attention to item FC2. FC2, if you remember, was the negative vote on the education center. We voted 9 for denial and 3 for acceptance because of the ATL, the electric company billing. And the report was received, and Mr. Barberi acknowledged receipt of the CORC report. There were no comments from the board, and it proceeded on without any discussion at all. So I'm not sure if something subsequently happened on that issue.
Was that pulled?
It was not. It was not rescinded.
Passed on consent.
It passed on
Okay,
consent.
so it passed on consent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did our job. We provided the board with our comments, and it's then completely up to the board as to how they proceed. Okay, you can
get what happened with it. It didn't get
passed. No, it did not get pulled.
Isn't that what we voted on?
Well,
Yeah, we voted to reject it. There's no justification for the added cost from the power company, and we felt that that was an unacceptable condition.
Your
But,
vote, recommendation to the board. Your vote is a recommendation to the board as to an action. The board was provided that information. As a matter of fact, the board was individually were briefed on that circumstance. They were made aware of CORC's discussion, and the item remained on there and passed on consent.
Excuse me, that's not the way I remember it. I recall during the discussion, you said you would like for us to tell you to pull it. And that's exactly the.
That's not what happened. That's not what happened.
That's the motion I made, was to
voted to deny.
Pull it.
Voted to deny it.
No, absolutely not.
We'd have to go back and look at the tape.
Yeah, I think so. Because that's not what we all agreed to. In fact, you made the David Porter didn't care for that. You're the one that wanted it pulled. So I said, well, I want to do it. That's best.
If you read the minutes, it is saying exactly what John is saying. It was that you were going to pull it.
Well, it was not. Again, CORC's, your action is a recommendation, not action. And that this was discussed with board members, explained. They were made aware of the discussions, and their action was to move it forward.
Michael. We're still not hearing you. Sorry.
Dorothy, can you unmute him from there?
Yeah.
I cannot.
It looks like he is unmuted, or he was unmuted.
Still muted, Michael. It's showing unmuted on this side, but we're not hearing you.
He has multiple microphones and he's not finding the right microphone is what's happening.
Okay. We'll come back to your comment, Michael. Go ahead and try to figure that out. Okay. That was our CORC report. Lou, you can prepare a report again for us for this meeting?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, staff updates.
Dorothy, do you have anything before? Okay, I've got a couple of just quick items. Of course, as you heard during our attendance roll, sitting next to me is our new director of construction, facilities construction department. As many of you know, for the last 5 years, I have been both the deputy chief, now the chief of facilities management, overseeing a number of other departments, as well as the construction department. And I actually did all the day-to-day managing of the construction department, or well, at least I will say I tried. I am fortunate now to have Michael Tubiolo has joined us as the director of that department. And so what you will all see over the next several months or however long, we will start transitioning away so that I will do less talking. I know you'll appreciate that part of it, where I will actually have Michael involved more. So you'll get a lot more of the details from Michael and Dorothy going forward. And I'll still be here, of course, but and we didn't want to scare him away in the first month, so I would certainly continue on for as long as needed. The next item I have is and it's one little item, but I wanted everybody to know that we are working with. We always work to try to improve our relations with the industry, the construction industry, the procurement industry. And in fact, I wanted to let everybody know we're working with the Office of Diversity. Next week, we actually have a listen and learn with, I'm just say the Hispanic community. We actually have a Hispanic outreach program, and we're having a listen and learn session with them. So of course, if you know of contractors and vendors that want to work with the district, we welcome them to come join us. But we're also, like I said, it's not just a presentation, it's actually a listen and learn. We want to hear what their concerns are. And while it is co-sponsored by the Division of the Department of Diversity, it's not just for small business Hispanic companies. We want to hear what the industry is saying about us. So we look forward to that event and getting some positive, constructive criticism as to how we can improve our operations to make it more inviting for others. Because as you can imagine, our construction industry right now is quite tight. It's quite difficult. A lot of challenges in the industry, and we need as many good vendors, good contractors as possible. One other item I wanted to let everybody know about. Sorry about that. It looks like we have, I don't know if that's a smoke detector.
Yes.
Oh, it's your,
Don't say that. I know where the AED is.
The next item the last item I wanted to touch on was just that we hit a very busy time in the construction department. Well, generally in the entire district, but this is an incredibly busy time. We come back from Christmas break and everybody's refreshed and mobilizing. We've got a ton of work to go. As you all know from the cadence of our program, we of course have summer work coming up. Well, in order to get to summer work, we have to have everything lined up now. We're going to start seeing a bunch of GMPs and a lot of actions for work that's going to be done in January, February, March, April, so that they're purchased out and ready for construction in May and June. In addition, our departments are going through our operational budget. We want to make sure that we have enough money to continue to operate next year, make sure we've got proper staffing and whatnot. So that's quite a busy time. And as well, I really double dipped this year is our capital plan is going on at the same time. So we are not only working to push the work forward that you all see, but we're doing a lot of long-term planning and that will keep us busy at least for the next several months. So our capital budgets, and of course, you will all see that as we get it developed. There will be workshops with the with the board as well going forward. And I think Leanne's intent was to have the capital budgets done by around June. Leanne, did you want to weigh in on that?
No, you said what I was going to say. We're trying to move the process up so that it's done, and that allows us to have the budget loaded by the end of the fiscal year so that they're ready to rock and roll come July, and there's no delays. So we're really looking forward to that. There's already been some really good meetings, sorting through the existing capital plan, looking at things that need to be added and revised. So the team's doing a lot of good work, and I look forward to having that wrapped up in February, at the end of, by February 1, and then I take it over, trying to balance it, see what we can do and what we can't do, and then we all work through prioritizing what gets funded, and if things don't get funded. Past couple of years, we've been very lucky. We've been able to fund all the requests. So that's great. And hopefully we can do that again this year.
Mm-hmm. And that's the, for us, that's the end of our staff report.
Okay. I might recommend that you email out to CORC members Michael's contact information, and when you want us to copy both of you on any emails to you.
Okay.
I mean, that's up to you when you want that to happen. But I mean, so far, if we had a question, it would go to you.
Oh, right now, I think that until Dorothy kicks me in the shins, I think all your communications still go through Dorothy.
Okay.
And will continue to do so, because I don't want to have, no one other than maybe you and I might have an occasional conversation.
Okay.
No one actually emails me. Everybody does go through Dorothy, and at this point should continue to do so until she says uncle.
Okay, that's fine.
Michael Gelfan's speaker was working, so I muted him, but it looks like he's back. If you want to go back.
Michael?
Fantastic. Thank you,
Hey, okay, go ahead with your.
If I can go back to the issue with the AT&T bill, I'm looking at the minutes also. This would have appeared to have been a staff matter to pull. And of course, the board can't make a decision to put something on the agenda like that just on its own without the superintendent's approval. So the question is why did staff go ahead with this in light of the discussion that it would be pulled? What urgency was there on that?
Well, I prefer to not relitigate the entire discussion, because last month that was a 45-minute discussion or something like 30-minute discussion. But the discussion, I respectfully disagree with the interpretation of this. Yes, there was a point at which I discussed, do we want to withdraw it? But it was not the motion, to my understanding and my recollection, because we went back through the tape and went through this to make sure we had everything. Because my initial thought was, we're not giving the board an opportunity to consider it.
What's the urgency?
What's that?
What was the urgency that it could wait 30 days?
Because it had been going on for several years.
It's going to be a lawsuit as of January filed against Hedrick.
Are we going to be seeing these same type of lack of documentation problems from AT&T in the future?
Well, again, I don't want to relitigate it, and I try not to bash our, let's call our partners, but to my comments last month continue to be our control over AT&T and other public entities like them. We're limited. We do have some recourse, but they are a system in which we don't get to say, well, we're not going to pay you. When they are the sole person that's moving the line, we either pay them or they'll put it on the back burner and nothing gets done. And this was an item that needed to be done. The contractor took the risk, went and did this, paid them, got the work done. Now AT&T is AT&T. The problem was that they came back afterwards and said, right there in the contract, it says, our quote is our quote, but it could be more. And it was more. And the change order that came for last month was for the additional money that they charged us. But we don't.
Well, I think his question was, does it typically happen? Has it happened in the past where we were put over a barrel and we had to pay more? AT&T?
Well, it happens with in several instances. It happens with FP&L. It'll
happen in the past, Michael, and it'll happen again in the future. We just have to deal with it.
And we, to suggest that we don't have any leverage, we have more leverage than most because, we're the largest employer in Palm Beach County, and AT&T is AT&T. They're worldwide. So we do have points of contact, and we did engage them to try to facilitate this, but there are systems in place that say you must do this. It's the same way, and I've been dealing with FP&L for decades, and they say you will do a deposit. You will pay up front. You will pay a 50% up front, whether you like it or not. And there is no getting around it. We can call, the CEO of FP&L, but their systems in place require that we do so. These are the kinds of things that we work with, and they're so as not wanting to relitigate it, but last month the premise was the contractor took the risk with the expectation that we would reimburse them for the additional costs that were necessary.
Yeah, I don't remember, as long as I've been on CORC, an after the fact bill like that. I mean, there was a contract agreed upon price that AT&T was claiming was an estimate, and it could come in more. I don't remember there being anything like this situation previously.
I've had it happen several times in my previous experiences with FP&L, where and it's exactly what happened on this one. They put an estimate together that they were going to do overhead lines when they got overhead lines when they got out there and realized that they could not do so. Shame on them. Maybe they should have done more due diligence up front. They had to go underground, and that's where the additional costs came in.
I see two significant points here. One, with the comparison to FP&L, everything that you spoke of were how the payments flow, but not that we would, paying deposits when we pay, but that's not getting to increases without documentation. Second, and perhaps more important, is that you presented how the contractor took the risk. It now not only appears, but that risk has been shifted to us without our approval.
Well, no, without your approval or without mine. It was with my approval. It was with my approval, with the district staff's approval. We don't put our we try not to put our contractors in a bad position. So when this occurred, the discussion that was occurred internally with staff was, do we feel that this is something that the contractor should have and could have abated the risk and should have be responsible for the costs themselves? And the answer is no. There was no way that any contractor would know that FP&L or AT&T in this case, was going to come back with an additional charge, whatnot. Again, forgive me, I don't. If we want to relitigate this, this is the problem that we're having right now. The action that was taken was based on the recommendation. It was a recommendation that it not go forward. The board was picked on the circumstances, and they chose to continue it on.
But the characterization of this repeatedly that I've just heard was this was a risk that the contractor took on. And yes, you evaluated it after the fact, but that's
no. Not after the fact, sir. Not after the fact. They would not have done so without actually having reached out to our SPA and said to us, hey, by the way, they have this other payment, and we have to agree to this, or they won't do the work. So anyway.
We are a recommendation to the board, and whatever might have happened in a misunderstanding of what CORC's opinion might have been, it's still up to the board, and the board seems like they were briefed in all the discussion, and the board decided to let it go through. So we are an advisory opinion. John.
The minutes read, motion that CORC pull the item from the next board agenda, which means the board would never have seen it until such time that adequate backup is provided by AT&T. Motion approved, 7-4.
7-4. It wasn't 9-3. Yeah.
It was. We were going to pull the item, and the board wasn't even going to get a chance to look at it until the backup was provided.
Well, that's
how that can be misinterpreted. That's pretty clear.
And the thing is that this isn't a decision. The gatekeeper role, if you would, was not the board's. They would have never seen it if staff hadn't pushed this thing forward. And my concern is how this becomes a repetitive item. So I think our role is, we had the discussion last time. Everyone seems to have the impression that it's quite different from staff's impression. Excuse me. And, to characterize this as relitigating, I mean, between Tom and I, we can litigate, but we're not doing that. We're serving our role here, which is specifically oversight to ask questions, particularly when something like this is so out of character. That's our role. So getting back to the substance of this, all right, how do we make certain this doesn't happen again?
My recommendation is the board recommendations should be an up or down vote on the item. The caveats that this committee recommends go against the order. Basically the agenda item is an up or down item. If it's not approvable, the answer is we vote against it 7-4. Not we recommend that you do things. And again, I understand where you're coming from. That was not the approach on it. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
John. We're having the discussion, and we were talking about if we should vote it up or down. You said that, why don't you guys just tell me to pull it? And David Porter said, no, it should be up or down. And I said, well, I want to make David as comfortable as he can with this.
It wasn't.
I took your recommendation, and that's.
I asked you to vote. It wasn't that I asked you to recommend that. I said my concern, my consideration has to be whether I should pull it. That has nothing to do with your vote.
No, that is what you said. You said for us to tell you to pull it. I specifically remember this, and you can go back and listen to the tape.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we could talk about this for the rest of the day. Yeah. I mean, I think, unfortunately, it happened. I think we don't want to see it happen again. And I guess we need that assurance that, and that's what the vote is, that staff will follow through with that all the way to the board.
Well, that's the thing. My recommendation is that the committee's recommendations be an up or down vote, because if you're suggesting that the board not hear something, they're entitled to hear your comments. They're entitled to hear you recommend against it, and here's the reasons why. They still should be entitled the opportunity to consider that. What you're suggesting is you have veto power, that they don't even get to consider it, and that's not necessarily the approach from this committee. It should be, in fact, it's a no, and here's our reasons why. You guys did a terrible job with your backup. You didn't, have a proper quote. There was no support. Whatever those reasons are.
So, which board member or did the superintendent himself make a recommendation that this stay on the agenda?
I believe it just stayed on the consent agenda and nothing changed. I mean,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm hearing from staff that the board wanted this on. We've just had the discussion.
No, I've never said the board. I never said the board wanted it on. It was, as Mr. Porter just said, it stayed on consent, and the meeting minutes that Mr. Doctor prepared were uploaded to the board. And in fact, the discussion the superintendent and the chief operating officer did have discussions with the board members to brief them on the circumstances of that item.
So we get back to this was a staff decision to move forward with this, which is contrary to the recollection in the minutes.
Well, even if it was, Michael, I mean, I think we can't do anything about coming backwards.
But the problem is that there are a number of occasions, thankfully, and to staff's credit, not a whole lot of them that we asked to be pulled. But when we do have the discussion and we're told it's going to be pulled, we rely on that. And what this indicates is that we can't.
Well, I disagree with the characterization. I'll just leave it at that. So.
And we can't do anything about going backwards. We're going to have to be aware of our motions going forward, of how we want to phrase them to get our opinions to the board, and to be as emphatic as possible to get our motions to the board.
And I think that the minutes need to reflect whether staff agrees with the decision to pull or not. I hate to say it that way, but that's...
Yours is a recommendation. Yours is the committee is a recommendation.
So who makes the decision to pull?
Who makes the decision to rescind, to not actually post?
To pull an item that we've reviewed.
So in the past, we've had a number of items for many different reasons that have been pulled from the agenda.
It could be any number of people. It could be me. It could be the chief operating officer. It could be the superintendent.
Okay, there's three though. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Okay, I need us to go back to approving the agenda because there was an item left off of the agenda. I'm going to call it 6.10, election of officers.
6.02, I think is the...
Well, I just made it 6.1.
Mr. Chair, I have my hand up. I wanted to make a brief comment.
Yes, go ahead, Leah. Sorry.
So, yes, so I guess my issue is on the procedure. If the item was voted to be pulled from the agenda, then there are two issues here. Does CORC have the authority to pull an item? And must the items come with a recommendation or not? Because there are two issues here. The item was pulled and there was no recommendation. So there really was no recommendation even coming from CORC one way or another on the item. So I guess that needs to be cleared up before we go forward, because I felt that CORC's role was to provide recommendations on the items. I thought that was the oversight of CORC. So actually what happened in the situation, I'm not sure, I don't think it was anything intentional, was an item went forward without CORC's recommendation and staff gave its own recommendation. Staff is the one. That's what I think. That's my point.
If I could jump in and just looking at CORC's policy, which is 1.093, section 1, purpose, it says it's to assist the board by oversight, review of, and making recommendations concerning the work of responsible departments, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I think that really is the guiding policy as far as what is the purpose and what is the scope of CORC's, that the board, the power, or the oversight consists of oversight, review, and making recommendations.
Is that our attorney?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I agree. And what I'm saying is the item went forward without a recommendation.
No, it went forward with a recommendation and voiced the expressed disapproval and the reasons why you disapproved.
Oh, I thought the vote was to pull it from the agenda. I didn't think there was a recommendation one way or not, or the other. There's a fine line between the two.
Well, the item was voted down 7-4.
But I thought the motion was to pull it. I didn't think there was a recommendation one way or another. That's different. That's my understanding, which is actually different from the interpretation that it was not recommended to move forward.
Well, the actual minutes state recommendation was made by Mr. Cheshire pull the item from the next board agenda until more detailed information be provided by AT&T. So that was the recommendation that got the majority vote of CORC. So then it comes back, okay, well, who has the authority to pull it? It's three people. It's Dave Dolan, Joe Sanchez, and Mike Burke. And so whatever happened after the CORC meeting, it was decided to let it go forward and to let the board see the CORC minutes that CORC didn't approve it.
I don't understand that. I'm not following that. If the vote was to pull the item, there is no recommendation one way or another.
And I just wanted to add, I think there is some ambiguity in the discussion that occurred as far as pulling it from a meeting. I don't think under policy 1.093, CORC has the authority to pull something from the school board agenda. As Mr. Porter said, there are certain enumerated district leaders that can do that. So, you know, I think that when the discussion occurred about pulling from an agenda, CORC could only under policy 1.093 pull from its own agenda. You could say, we don't want it on this agenda, bring it back, but that is not going to have, in my mind, any legal relevance as to what is going to go before the school board.
That doesn't make any sense to me, because then what is our purpose here?
Your purpose,
we could make actions or not approve items because we're dissatisfied with the backup or whatever the reason, and the items still go forward and just ignore the CORC's position on it?
No, not at all. Again, it's to make recommendations. So recommendations can be, yes, we want this to go forward. A recommendation can also be, no, we don't want this to go forward. But CORC, under its policy, does not have the express authority to pull something from the school board agenda.
Right, but I don't think staff has veto power over CORC either. I just don't think so.
And I don't think in this instance, the district leadership made the decision to move forward. You know, ultimately, Mr. Burke, as the superintendent, when he reads the item, it is his recommendation.
John, you had something?
So the board didn't know, unless they went into our meeting minutes, our issue with this item.
I have no idea. I mean, the materials, Dave is more familiar with the materials that the board is given before their board meeting.
Yeah, the board members were briefed on the details behind what CORC was dissatisfied with, and whether the backup, supporting backup.
We don't have any idea why they chose to ignore our opinion. Why they just said, yeah, we're going to pay AT&T to hell with it. We don't care.
We don't know that, right? And Lou does a report that goes to the board as well. And so the board reads that report. I don't know if they read the minutes or not from the meeting. They are also given to them prior to their board meeting. But Lou's report was a reiteration of what we had discussed at the meeting. Okay, we're not going to go back and change what had already happened. And so we'll have to remain unsatisfied with that, I think, and move forward. So, Dave, you were saying that election of officers was
It's on 6.02 right now. If you here, you can see it on the refreshed
okay,
screen.
but it wasn't updated on the actual PDF agenda because I
No.
went there this morning. Oh,
Yeah, it got updated this morning.
Okay.
That was on there, but it used to say something like new business item.
Okay.
And when you highlighted it, it said.
So do we need a motion to add that to the agenda? It's required by our CORC policy that we have at the end of this meeting, the election of officers. So I need a motion to accept that addition into the agenda because it was not added onto the published agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Second by John. Dorothy, I guess Polis.
All right, Bill Hukill,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
I saw his mouth move, yes.
Tom Berger,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we will continue down the agenda. Public comments. Any public comments? Okay, seeing none. We're down to consent agenda. All right, FC1. I wanted that pulled.
Yes.
Michael too? Okay. FC2?
Yes.
Yes.
FC3? DC1?
Yes, pull that.
DC2?
Yes. Gelfand.
DC3? DC4? DC5? DC6? DC7?
Yes.
DC8?
Yes.
And I wanted that also.
Move the consent agenda forward without objection.
Well, no, I think
The item's not pulled.
Okay, thank you. Need a second on that?
Second.
Second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, we had to poll people.
Bill Hookhill.
Yes.
David Porter.
Yes.
John Cheshire.
Yes.
Leah Gaines. Leah. I'll come back. Lou Doctor.
Yes.
Michael Gelfand.
Yes.
Michael Guida.
Yes.
Sam Shannon.
Just saw yes.
Tom Berger.
Yes.
And Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Leah, are you available? All right, and then Mark Kerr is absent. Oh, Ken Lassiter is here as well.
Okay.
And we just voted on the
Consent.
consent items that were not pulled.
I'll go with that because if he just tuned in, he wasn't here for the discussion.
Okay, I understand.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay. I was the only one that pulled, Michael pulled FC1 as well.
Yeah.
Michael, go ahead. Did we lose everybody?
In reference to Melaleuca, the auto flush assembly, this seems to be a new requirement from the Water Utilities Department. I guess the first question is that a requirement for other utility districts that we're going to be dealing with, the other municipalities?
What was the item again, Michael?
The Melaleuca Elementary, the auto flush assembly.
Oh, okay.
Item number 2 on the report.
It does appear, I mean, Dorothy, I'm reading that, and it does appear that it's a new requirement.
Yeah.
But what Michael's asking, is that also a requirement for other than Palm Beach County water utilities like Seacoast?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So
Seems like the answer, Michael, is it's just Palm Beach County water utilities that want something new.
So my question is not to alert everyone else that they should have an extra on it, but if it's just Palm Beach County, is there a way to negotiate with them so we don't have this again? Or alternatively, we'll need to change our specs to include this. I guess before that point though, is this something we would want to have on our specs for everything else? I skipped over that. I should have thought of that first. So.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, if we changed our district master spec for every time an agency changed a specific requirement for flush valves or backflows or whatnot, any of those types of things, we could never keep up with it. So we generally have our master spec that just says something to the effect of whatever the requirements are of the local jurisdiction, giving us that flexibility to follow along. Now, that's why this is a CC, because it's primarily, this is exactly what CCUAs are kind of there for, is those unforeseen kind of changes that you couldn't have anticipated that happen every 6 months when an agency changes. So we feel that what we will do on this is we will convey this to all other SPAs working on projects to check with your water utilities, contact, and make sure if you have to upgrade to this new requirement on your project, and all new projects going forward should account for the new design criteria.
Well, whenever we're doing something with Palm Beach County Water Utilities, all of the MEP engineers should be told, make sure this is part of your spec.
And that's the thing, during our design process, they meet with water utilities. They're given the specs at the time. It might take 9 months for the project to get through and go into construction, and they say, oh, we got a new flush valve or whatever that is required. And that's where our circumstances
They do
change.
because they can. Okay, is that it, Michael?
So I guess the question is how do, I mean, at this point now, this is not going to be an unforeseen item. This would be expected for anything within the county's water jurisdiction. So is there going to, will this go on some type of a checklist so that we don't have these things coming back up again as change orders?
It changes so frequently, or there are quite frequent changes. I'm not saying this particular thing changes frequently. We will notify all the SPAs. You had mentioned that, going forward for those that are not under contract, there are probably 15 or 20 other projects that are under contract that have water utilities. Those ones may come up, or we have to do the same change, because once it's under contract, we might have to make an adjustment. So going forward on designs that are not permitted or not GMPs, we will certainly account for this until the next time there's a change.
That was the question.
Yes.
I mean, we now know of this. So if an engineer is working on a design, it's called get an email to them saying, hey, make sure you include this.
Or ask water utilities. Has it changed since the last we heard? Yeah, absolutely. We do substantial communications with our design professionals to make sure that they're staying on top of these things.
The second item, it deals with the Melaleuca concrete material changes, the item that sparks my comment, the next one, but also reviewing generally and seeing other changes that are coming through. How is this impacting our budget on these items? I see that, we're handling it generally in contingencies, but that's going to start eating the contingency up, I would say.
No? Okay. Yes, it's a very good point. It's a very valid point. We are experiencing changes all around. Everything is becoming more delayed, more difficult to get a hold of when it comes to concrete. They're rationing our concrete, as an example. So we think we're getting 4 pours a week at 500 yards each pour. We're getting 2 pours a week at 300 yards a pour. So these are all the challenges you'd expect, and we're just getting hit with them all. It's I don't want to say you name the product, but virtually everything we're experiencing upcharges, delays, opportunities to buy forward. We've talked about this in the past, trying to get up higher on a list by paying an increase. These are challenges we're working through now. And yes, it is dramatically impacting our budgets.
So the corollary to that is going to be, is that going to require us to cut back other projects or scale back projects?
A little yes and a little no. I wish I could give you a definitive answer. Yes, we're always looking to shave, to trim, but not at the expense of the important things that we need to do when we're building schools for kids. So, there are times when, that's why Leanne and I are basically attached at the hip. All day long, we are talking about what's happening on such and such project and what additional monies I need. And we've already decided we're going to go on something cheaper on this, but we can't afford to do it on that. I need extra money. And we work with them regularly on trying to accommodate that, especially on some of our referendum projects, which, Leanne, I know you're unmuted now.
I just hit Control-D.
Mute Sam.
And it allowed me to turn it back on.
Welcome back, Sam.
Okay. Leanne, do you have a comment on budget?
Dave is correct. We are talking at least once a day, sometimes multiple times a day, in the car, in the office, wherever we find each other, trying to stay on top of this. There's multiple issues on all the construction projects, the projects getting started. We do have 2 agenda items in the package today. It's going to the board next week that we're buying items in advance. We're placing orders for materials for projects that haven't started yet because there's such long lead times. So purchasing is involved in those discussions as well, trying to figure out how to get ahead and make sure we can keep the schools on schedule. We're all working together as closely as we can, quite frankly.
I guess
sometimes more closely than we like between Dave and I. We're on the phone constantly.
All the time.
I guess to Michael's question, long term, are you seeing us having to, let's say, not do a particular school because we don't have the money because other projects came in too much?
Well, it really depends.
Yeah, not yet that I'm aware of. We came to CORC. I'm not sure when we brought it to CORC. I know we took it to ISOC and we took it to the board. The plan of how we're managing all of the sales tax projects to make sure we can complete them. We moved a couple projects from sales tax to COPS. We took 4 large facility renewals and moved them into COPS, which wasn't something I really wanted to do, but it gave them some extra leeway. And we're working with AECOM, and I've got a draft of it. We're reviewing it right now, trying to track exactly what we made a lot of changes in how we're funding things, looking at additional sales tax, what we think we're going to get to come up with how much money we think is available to deal with cost overruns. And when we did that analysis, it's all going to work. It's constantly changing, unfortunately. The costs keep changing. So it's a constant review process to see where we're at. The last report, the last version I saw, and Dave and I need to catch up again. There's a new report that's out that I have not finished reviewing. But the one before that, we were still able to finish everything. We did switch about $80 million of the projects to COPS from sales tax. For facility renewals, we also moved the Delray Full Service project from and Roosevelt from sales tax to COPS. We're doing our best to make sure that our commitment is to finish every project. I have not heard it. I've had no reason to think that we'll not be able to finish every project on the referendum list.
That is correct. And I'm in support of that same comment.
Okay. The challenge may be timing. If we continue to have delays that we can't get concrete, we can't get switch gears, and I'm quite proud of the fact that I can rattle these names off: switch gears and generators and all these things that they need in projects. The fact that they can't get them, and some have a 4-year lead time right now. It's insane that something we used to order and get within 12 months is now 4 years. So it does change the way they're managing projects. We're working with purchasing, all of us working together to try to find ways to keep these projects on schedule as much as possible, but we may start seeing delays. And it's not that we're not doing everything we can, we just can't get the materials. So Dave, I hope I said all that correctly.
That's correct. That's correct.
And just for one point of clarification, Leanne, switch gears, take the S off the end. Just switch gear.
I saw a picture of it. It's the way it was explained to me. It's like the circuit breaker box in my house, but it's a wall. It's massive. It's cool. Can't open without it. So.
Yep, exactly. I had also pulled this. Dorothy, if you can go to the limestone backup that you had uploaded.
Sure. Make that easy.
I had uploaded a document. I think it was only yesterday when somebody said, "Where's the backup for limestone?"
I just have to find it.
Oh, that's the email that she had.
Yeah, it was an email I guess you had sent out. Well, my general question is, it was on a cut above number that they had for landscaping and tree trimming work that was associated with re-roofing of the outdoor play structure. If you can get down to page 3, I think, of that document. I think it's page 3.
Oh,
yeah, right there.
Yeah,
I guess I have a question of how do we determine whether we think the prices are accurate? And the reason I bring up that is 6,250 to prune and trim back some trees around that building. I had 6 streets of a community in my neighborhood with 50-foot oak trees trimmed, 110 oak trees, and it was $12,500. And that was bid out to a couple of different people, and it was a licensed arborist. So to trim 110 50-foot oak trees at $12,500, which is only double this number, there had better been a jungle around the outside of that play structure for that number to not be inflated. So I guess that's my question of how do we validate the numbers that were being presented? And without a cut above, being asked to bid against somebody else, number in there.
Well, basically it starts with the CM at risk. They have to work with these people and make sure that they consider this amount fair and reasonable for the work that's being done. Then it comes to the SPA and it goes to our project controls people. So I can pull up that change order. There are actually pictures of the area. So I can show those to you.
I don't need the proof. I was really just asking, somehow we need to be able to validate all those types of numbers that we're getting instead of it just being, maybe the SPA doesn't know what the number should be. Maybe the estimator hasn't looked at enough tree trimming jobs to know what the number should be.
Right.
But we don't have quotes for 3 previous jobs we can go back to for some other tree trimming company that did the work. Just to be able to validate we're actually getting a good number instead of an inflated.
Our project controls has documentation on other projects and other comparisons that he's generally looking at. So we leave it up to him to determine whether it's fair and reasonable.
Okay. That's all I had on that. Any other discussion before we have a motion? I need a motion on FC1 then.
Move to go forward.
A second? Second by Ken. Okay, go ahead and poll this, Dorothy.
Bill Hukill?
Yes.
David Porter?
Yes.
John Cheshire?
Yes.
Ken Lassiter?
Yes.
Leah Gaines? Lou Doctor?
Yes.
Michael
I'm
Galvin?
sorry, yes. I'm sorry.
Michael-
Something happened to my screen, sorry.
Okay. Michael Gelfand?
Yes.
Michael Guida?
Yes.
Sam Shannon?
Yes.
Tom Berger?
Yes.
Virginia Ferris?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to FC2. John, start us off.
Yeah, this item caught my attention just because of the size. We always like getting money back, but close to $500,000 on that project. And I was wondering if there was an explanation on the unused general requirements and unused unpurchased scope. If there's a reason to go along with that number. And then the second question was, what is unpurchased scope?
General requirements are an estimate up front. It's based on what they think they're going to need as far as fencing, cleaning, tools, anything like that. So it is just a rough estimate. They need to provide documentation and receipts for everything that they apply towards that. So anything that is being returned to us, it was funding that they did not spend or didn't document spending. Unpurchased scope can usually be 2 different things. One is if we do not have sufficient backup or design to bid out something. For example, if we want to do an elevator and we don't have a quote for an elevator, we may put in an unpurchased scope for that. Or if we're going to be doing some landscaping, but it hasn't been designed yet, so we know we're going to provide some landscaping, we may put some funds in there as an unpurchased scope for landscaping.
Allowances.
Yeah,
Let's call them allowances. That way we wouldn't even have a question on it.
This is true. Sometimes we use allowances, sometimes we use unpurchased scope. It depends on how much information we have going into it.
That's the allowances are very focused and we can't exceed that.
Correct.
Know that. Whereas unpurchased scopes are on, we literally don't have all the detail about the scope.
The second way that we end up with unpurchased scope is if we bid a commodity, say for electrical, for example, and the bids come in at $1 million, then the CM negotiates with the electrical subcontractor and gets them down to $985,000. Well, we take that balance and we leave it in the electrical division. We leave it in there as unpurchased scope so that if something comes up, we need to add a light fixture here or we need to modify something as we go, it's still in the electrical division and we use that as unpurchased scope. The scope of work overall has not changed. We just have bought it out for a little bit less.
Buyout savings.
It's buyout savings.
Buyout savings that we keep in the division so otherwise buyout savings goes back to contingency and then it can go
See how confusing this reads with unpurchased scope. It sounds like there was some scope in there that they decided, well, we're not going to buy that, so you're not going to get it.
The full amount of money that we put in there for that, because we didn't know, we may not have known the scope when we put that unpurchased scope value together.
Well, it sounds like, okay, we were going to do a playground. That's what we were going to do. And we decided not to do a playground. So we have unpurchased scope, right?
Right.
I don't know if you can.
Or it's, we thought we were going to build a $120,000 playground. Or we thought we were going to build a playground. We weren't sure how big or how much or how little. And we put in 120 because we knew that the big ones that we build are 120. But once we got out there and realized, oh, we only needed a pre-K, it was only going to be 55,000, and there was money left over.
Oh, in these cases, why don't you want to get the overhead and profit back from the contractor?
It goes back again to we're working with our PM at risk. If they bid something out, and say the playground, for example, we put in an unpurchased scope of $120,000 for the playground, but we're able to get it done for $100,000. Contractor has saved us $20,000. He has earned his fee, his overhead and profit for that work. He has still done the same playground. We have not reduced his scope of work at all.
No, but its overhead and profit is based upon a dollar amount, not what the work is. You should get overhead and profit on $100,000.
It is a fixed fee based on the GMP amount, correct. But as long as the scope of work hasn't saved, we're not going to penalize them for saving us money.
Well, in the past, we have gotten back the overhead and profit for things like general requirements and unpurchased and those sorts of things.
I fear that I understand where you're coming from. I fear that we'd be disincentivizing contractors to save us money because their attitude is, well, I'm not going to try any harder because I'm going to get less money.
But on the other hand, if he thinks that it's $100,000 playground, well, I'm going to put in $120,000 and I'm going to get the overhead and profit on the $20,000. Free money, why not? And I'll give you back the $20,000, but I'm keeping my overhead and profit. Oh,
and again, it's not a cost plus contract. So, I think this is in the best interest of the district.
No,
we are seeing that benefit because otherwise, I don't think we're going to see that. I don't think they're going to work.
I think we need to be consistent in how you're going to apply it because, like I say, in the past, contractors have offered it to us in their closeout change order, and we've taken it, which is great. And I think it was Wharton Smith did it last year. We brought it up with them, and they volunteered. And they said, "Yeah, we're going to go ahead and profit back for the deductive change order." So,
understand. I hate to say thank you.
That fellow who was just talking there.
Yeah.
Again, if it's a deductive change order, then yes, we would expect them to give the overhead and profit back because that scope of work not being done.
Chief guy that did it all.
Oh, really?
To all online members, I might recommend that be aware that if you're talking to somebody else or talking on the phone, that you're talking in our meeting. So just mute yourself before you might talk elsewhere. Michael Gelfand.
I was going to say Sam can't hear you because he's talking to someone else in the back.
You're preaching to the choir.
So back onto the issue. did we change the contract at all? Because following, I think it was John's comments, we have had overhead and profit allocated back. That's my recollection. So has there been a change in the contract?
As far
And profit return, was there a change in the contract, or have we just had voluntary return of overhead and profit by CMs?
and if there is a reduction in the scope of work, for some reason we have eliminated some portion of the work, there's a deductive change order for a portion of that work, then yes, they have returned it to us. We have had an occasional CM that has voluntarily given us money back.
On the unpurchased scope issues.
Correct, but that is not part of the contract requirements. The contract has it set up as a fixed fee.
But we do get overhead and profit back when we reduce the scope.
Correct.
That's part of the contract.
Yes.
Okay. Michael, anything else?
All right, thank you.
Okay. We answer your questions too, Michael?
Yeah, I'm somewhat unsettled on this, I will say, and I almost would like to see if there's some other way, because with these dollar amounts, they do seem to be substantial. I understand staff's concern on motivating the contractor on this, but I don't know where CORC feels on it overall. And it's not just on this one agenda item, but from a policy that we have as we approach contracts.
And we can appreciate that. As a matter of fact,
Joe's got his hand up.
Oh, well, go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead, Joe. Thank you.
Hey, I'm sorry I'm going to be dipping in and out of this meeting because I got conflict in meetings. But on this issue, I think that we should let the facts kind of dictate where we go forward. So why don't, if you allow us to bring back what the contract specifically says, and then we can research any other examples that may have happened in the past and see if we have not applied it, consistently. So we can make sure that we're going forward with the facts and not what we all think we remember. I think that would probably be the best thing to do. And if you let this one go, and if we're entitled to more money, we'll come back and ask for more money. But I don't want to hold this up and end up holding up the closeout, because I'm sure this is holding up a final payment, which is probably substantial for a bunch of people. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Mr. Chair. If we could put this on the agenda, let's probably what you need two months down the line, so it's not just hurry up. And if with the minutes will reflect that this will come back, probably that would be what the March meeting. Does that make sense, Joe?
I'm recommending that the discussion comes back, but not this particular item, that we can move this forward. Okay.
Yeah, the discussion on the greater issue.
And I think, staff can look at whether we do need to tweak the contract or whether we should tweak the contract. And that will be your historical research to figure out, okay, well, let's change things. Okay.
Move the item forward without objection unless there's more comments.
Yep.
Second.
Second. Any other comments? All right, please poll us, Dorothy.
Bill Hookhill?
Yes.
David Porter?
Yep.
Frank Simon? He was here. John Cheshire?
Yes.
Ken Lassiter?
Yes.
Leah Gaines?
Yes.
Lou Doctor?
Yes.
Michael Gelfand?
Yes.
Michael Guida?
Yes.
Sam Shannon?
Yes.
Tom Berger?
Yes.
Virginia Ferris?
Yes.
And once more, Frank Simon, are you available? Looks like he's gone off again.
PC1, Mike Guida.
Yeah, if you could pull that up, and I think it's on. The part C.
Frank Simon says yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
This is PC1 or FC2?
PC1, item C, as in Charlie.
Go to page 50. I'm sorry. Go to page 57. So this question I have is more for legal. This is a pre-qualification for the general contractor Kaufman Lynn, and I noticed they have 21 litigations on their record, and 6 of them are open right now. How do you determine whether that contractor is still going to be a good suit for doing construction projects for the school board?
Well, legal's role isn't to evaluate the lawsuit. Our role is really what the policy requires is to make sure that applicants have disclosed certain litigation. And so my role in it, they've disclosed this litigation. I review Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and the nationwide federal to make sure that in addition to those lawsuits, that there aren't some other lawsuits that they're required to disclose. After my review, then construction purchasing has a review committee. And then that committee will review the litigation. If they have additional questions, Barbara's team would reach out to them and say, you know, hey, how do you think this is going to feel? So I then will turn it over to Barbara to maybe detail a little bit about their inquiry as to the substance and the resolution to lawsuits.
Is there a point system?
Go ahead, Michael.
Is there a point system or anything that could be used? So who is that looked at when determining whether this contractor should be qualified or not?
That's really looked at by our fact-finding committee that we have established for the pre-qualification. And they'll look through the applications and flag something. If they determine that something looks a little off, we might reach out to that vendor and say, could you hey, could you explain this a little bit further? Pending litigation is tough because it's pending. So sometimes either one of the sides don't really want to talk about it. But if it is flagged by the fact-finding, one of the members of the fact-finding committee, yes, they will bring it to the attention and we'll reach out to the vendors and ask for further clarification on it, which we have done in the past. I don't know for sure on this particular one. It's not stated here.
And I think that when I've worked with staff, when staff in the fact-finding committee has had some questions about pending litigation, they want to have the flexibility to be able to reach out to the applicant to say, can you give us a little bit more information? So I think that's why they haven't established a point system, because litigation is so varied and it's so different. And so it's hard to say, if you have one lawsuit in federal court, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. So when staff reaches out to me and says, we have a question, what exactly is the nature of this lawsuit? I can go on to the docket and help them understand maybe the nature of it, and they'll reach out to the applicant. But I just feel that if they were to implement a point policy, that it doesn't really catch the nuances of lawsuits. And so that, certain companies, if they have one bad lawsuit or something like that, if you say, well, you get a point, and then a larger company would have the same type of lawsuit and they get a point, it just would not capture to me, in my mind, the real essence of it. So I've never been approached to create a point system, and I don't know if Barbara feels that would be something beneficial to her team.
I honestly don't. I mean, I think the goal here is to have the best contractors obviously working for the district, and the way our pre-qualification application is structured right now, there's information that's required about past experience, and that is all that it, and the thresholds that we require. We have to have a certain financial capacity to be able to handle the type of work that we are going to be awarding you to do. I think the application right now, the way it's set up, is at a good point. If we were to go to something like that point system, who's going to determine, like Holly said, what those metrics are, and you run the risk of, limiting competition, and then possibly exposing the district to litigation, saying, well, you're prohibiting me from,
Joe, and then Tom.
I think Tom was first, but
You're more important.
No, more important. I was just going to say it based on my experience. When I look at these things, I look for litigation against the client, and if we have a contractor who's constantly fighting with their clients, that's what I'm more worried about than situations between, we have somebody who walked down the street and they tripped over, a sidewalk that, is next to the construction site, or even disputes between a subcontractor and the prime, because we are covered, we're indemnified by the contractor in those kind of situations. But if I had somebody who wants to pre-qualify with us and they have a long history of fighting with their clients, then that's a contractor that I don't particularly want to use. And I don't see that with what I'm seeing in front of me in terms of Kaufman Lynn's history.
And I was just going to give it as a civil defense attorney with a minor in construction defect. Basically, what you're going to find is a bunch of lien cases. And I think that's what Joe's talking about, where they're fighting over contracts and such. And you're going to find the construction defect type of work where an air conditioning was put in wrong and there's mold. And then you're going to find the personal injury slip and fall or work comp cases. The slip and falls and such are totally insignificant to us, I think. The work comp is somewhat insignificant to us. The lien cases are obviously important because they talk about disputes between the client or a subcontractor, and you got to worry about financial abilities, but also an inability to talk to people. The construction defect, quite often they're brought in, someone like Kaufman and Lynn is brought in because they are the GC and it's a subcontractor that screwed up or something like that. But there are so many variables, and I will tell you that it's very difficult at the present time to build a private building without facing construction defect, just because it seems to be a way to collect back some costs because of the nominal settlements that everybody will give. So a pending lawsuit or whatever, I think Joe's correct that's why I let you go first, Joe, is because the likelihood of something significant is greater with the lien. If there's a lot of construction defect, you'd want someone to look at it. Leanne, by the way, do you have Lexus or Westlaw?
That was Holly.
I don't have either one. I think you need Holly.
Holly, I'm sorry.
We have Westlaw.
Okay, because I found on Lexus there's an easier way to do your search, but I don't know. That's all I got.
Okay.
I have a follow-up.
Yeah,
real quick.
just a minute. I'll give you just a case history, Mike Guida. Blue Doctor had brought up one other time, maybe a couple of years ago, where again we had one of the contractors, just like you found, and they had like 51 litigation items. And it was all the stuff that's being talked about, where it's like, well, we don't want these guys. Well, CORC made enough of a stink about that it went back to purchasing. And that firm, I think, was basically delisted for a couple of years until they got their litigation stuff cleaned up. So continue to look at this stuff. You're getting an explanation of why it's okay to let some of these guys through, like with Kaufman and Lynn. But we do have a voice, and that did matter for bringing that up and having that whole discussion. Staff listened, and that firm was not accepted for a while. Lou.
Yeah, Dave, you have a good memory. One case, the contractor had a large number of outstanding lawsuits, put them on hold, and purchasing inquired for backup. The guy said he'd never had a single lawsuit in his life. He bought another company. He inherited all the lawsuits from the other company. 50% of them had been closed, and within the next 3 months, he expected to get rid of the balance.
It is a process. We found it works. So please keep looking at these, and you find something, bring it up, because when Lou brought that up, it was just like, okay, I didn't look through all this stuff, and now I look through it, it's like, oh my God. So anyway.
Barbara has one more.
Stole my thunder.
Yes, I'm sorry.
You stole my thunder.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that we do have a provision in board policy because of that exact instance that an application can be rejected if there is a systemic pattern of litigation. So we do have a provision for it.
Okay, great. I'm satisfied. Thanks.
Okay, you can go ahead and make the motion. Let it go forward then.
Make a motion for the PC1 to go forward.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Dorothy.
Bill Hukill,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon.
Oh.
Sam,
Yes.
Tom Berger,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, PC2, Mike Guida, I think, right? Or no, Michael Gelfand, sorry.
Holly gave me information and corrected my misreading, so I don't have any further follow-up. Thank you.
All right, go ahead and make a motion then, since it was pulled.
Yeah, so motion to forward the matter to the board without objection, PC2.
Second.
Second.
Second by Sam. Go ahead and poll this, please.
Hey, Bill Hukill,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Tom Berger,
Hakeem Jeffrey, yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, with following Mr. Berger's humor, I had thought that FC2 and 3 I had pulled.
FC2 and 3. FC2 had been pulled. FC3 was not pulled.
All right. Are we going to go back to them? I'm not certain if we've gone out of order. I just want to make certain.
We already voted on FC.
We already voted on all of those. You have something immediately pressing on FC3?
Well, first on FC2, I had a question with what was the problem with district maintenance that caused the delays?
Oh, why the extended contract value?
Time, the additional time.
On page 929, the email from Natalie Sancho of November 3rd referenced that the delays were caused by the high school maintenance, and this was 128 days. I understand that there could be some misissues back and forth, but that just seemed to be red flag.
Okay, I know a little bit about this one. They were trying to get final inspections. There were issues with the fire alarm control panel. There were troubles on the panel. Building department would not give them final inspections because of those issues, but they were not related to the construction. And so it took until maintenance was able to bring their vendor out to take care of the issues before they were able to request final inspections.
So this wasn't just a screw up that was caused by the high school maintenance staff then?
No, that's not. It's the district staff, and actually it was a district vendor, term vendor, that, it just took them a while to get out there and to get everything corrected.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, may I raise a question concerning FC3 Grove Park?
Okay.
Yeah.
Pull that one then.
With reference to that, it appears from the justification description that there was a substantial change in scope afterwards. Was there any work that was done on the original design that we paid for, or is that we can reuse, or was all that?
I kind of pushed this issue when I went to the groundbreaking. And Joe's smiling because I was standing there with him looking at the renderings of the project and seeing that we were going to build a brand new school and keep 6 portables out in back of the school. And I said, are they portables? And the question came back, yeah, we didn't have the budget to build the full addition onto the building. So this change order is to take an already designed building by Zaskovich and add the addition to the back of that building. So there is some, not physical construction renovation, but renovations to the completed drawings. Because this project's under construction. They're pouring concrete out there today. So it's renovating drawings to add an addition to get rid of the portables. And that's what the extra architect services is. And there will be an extra cost for the construction of that addition. But we will open a brand new building without portables.
All right, just so I know the target's on your back. Thank you.
That's fine. Okay, we will just let that be an explanation, I think, because it had already been approved under consent. We'll go back to PC7. John, you pull PC7.
Page 49, Darcy. Okay. This is one of those early work GMPs that we talked about earlier. And I had a question on the bid tab for Hedrick. If you look right there at the top with their color coding, they have a yellow, they highlight, anything that's not highlighted is a number that's been determined. It's either the bid number or a factual number. But if it was excluded, then Hedrick would say that, well, we're going to plug in the number in order to equalize the bids, to normalize between 2 different subcontractors. So when you highlight in yellow, it's a Hedrick plug number. So if you can scroll down to the bottom of that, keep going, next one, keep going right there. If you notice that the cost escalation adjustment, they added 72,000 for the one bidder and 182,000 for the other bidder, and it was a Hedrick plug number. So what that did was that flipped the low bidder to second low bidder and the second low bidder to being the low bidder. So you got the award because of Hedrick's plug number. So I asked the question, how did Hedrick come up with those numbers? And was told that the CM contacted both subcontractors and requested their cost escalation. And one of them responded with a 15% increase, and the other one said there would be a 40% increase. And so therefore it wasn't really a Hedrick plug number, it was an actual number according to this explanation anyway. And I just want to make sure I'll approve this item if I can be assured that Hedrick has all this information in writing and they've provided it to the school district. Because what they've done is change the low bidder with this number.
Right. Angel, do you want to take that?
I can get that information from them. The reason it's shown there as a plug-in number is because that information was not provided during the bid. As part of the bid. So they gathered it after the fact. But they're the ones giving us that information, so I'll be more than happy to provide the verification of that.
Okay.
Hedrick said that they contacted both subs. Those are the prices. The question John's saying is, did they get that in writing?
Yeah. Right. So
just a verbal.
ABNB and Square D.
Right.
And they gave them complete different numbers or amounts for their escalations that equated to 15 and 40, but they actually gave them amounts. Those are the amounts that they gave there. So I will go ahead and get that verification in writing.
Okay.
Substantial backup.
And you can provide it as either part of these meeting minutes or follow up for next month?
I think follow up for next month.
I think we do follow up for next
month. Follow up for next month.
Right.
Motion?
Yes, I move approval of PC7 to the board without objection.
Second.
I think that was Sam.
I think that was Sam.
All right. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Okay, go ahead and poll us, please, Dorothy.
Bill Huka?
Yes.
David Porter?
Yes.
Frank Simon?
Yes.
John Cheshire?
Yes.
Ken Lassiter?
Yes.
Leah Gaines?
Yes.
Lou Doctor?
Yes.
Michael Galfand?
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Tom Berger,
Yes.
Virginia Paris.
Yes, and Tom, or Sam, you're beating me to the mark there with your seconds. It's been a race.
I'll start to stutter.
No problem.
Okay, PCA, John, you pulled this?
Yeah, if you
I think I did too.
29. Figure out what I pulled. This is another of the early GMPs. And in this one, I noticed right in there at the bottom, the contractor's fee, if you look at that, you add the contractor's fee and the small business fee together, it's 4.5%. So I did the math to verify those numbers because they just didn't look quite right. And what he took 4.5% of was the total number at the bottom, the 5,311,000, which is not the way you calculate fee. I think everybody would agree. It should be on the number above the subtotal, the 4,400,000 and plus the allowances, I believe. So I asked about that and was told, whoops, no, the percentage is wrong, but the dollar amount is right. And when you redo the math, then his overhead and profit would be, if you did the math correctly that way, his overhead profit would be, shoot, I don't have it here.
5.11.
5.11, thank you, which is a very odd number. I've been doing this a long time and I have never seen an overhead profit for 5.11%. You want to comment on what happened here?
I'll let Angel comment on that one.
Angel?
So the way that the fee is calculated, John, is like you mentioned, it's based on divisions 1 through 33, plus general conditions, plus CM staff fee. And a percentage of that is what's allowed for overhead and
right.
The amount that they submitted for overhead and profit was negotiated. Their backup sheet was left from a earlier draft, and it shows the wrong percentage there. So during the various drafts of the GMP, the total GMP didn't stay at 5311958. It changed a little bit as we went through it, and we added some information that was during the GMP negotiation with the drawings. And so they kept the percentages there incorrectly, but the numbers were updated accordingly. So the number is correct. And it comes out to, like Dorothy mentioned, 5.11%.
But what did it start at? Didn't it start out at like 6 point something percent and you negotiated it down to the 5.11? It's
I got to go back to the earlier draft.
Yeah, what John is saying is, so Angel, I think we expect 5% or 5.25% or 5.5%.
If you go to these are negotiated fees, and that's the final number that we ended up negotiating. If you go back to the Winbrook GMP, it's a different percentage as well. It's not an exact 5 or 5.5. It's a negotiated fee as well. We went back and forth, and that's the number we ended up.
You're saying you negotiated the percentage or the dollar?
Dollar.
So you actually negotiated $265,500 $203,182.43
based on the amounts that we were coming up with.
Very odd.
Very precise.
And the same thing is true of the contingency. 5%, that number there is 5% of the bottom line number, 5,311,000. Scroll down to the other page. Right there. 5% contingency is not 5% as you would expect of the cost of the work. It's the overall GMP, which is never the right way of doing it.
Well, we can't even figure out how they did that. I mean, how do you take percentages of a number that you haven't calculated yet?
It's called a circular reference.
Right, it's a circular.
You can do it. And the reason I bring this up is because they did this to me when I was at Capital Improvements Palm Beach County, and we stopped them from doing it. And now I notice that they're doing it again, apparently. So I don't know. I'm not happy about it. If you have this,
Well, I mean, if this is an issue with this particular CM, I mean, that should be something that staff goes back to them saying, this is the last job you're doing this by.
can we get this sheet corrected, I guess?
It's
At least?
free services. Because
Yeah, we can do
the
that.
GMP will have full opportunity to remedy the question.
Okay, we'll remedy that before John sees it.
Remedy how? What do you mean?
This is just the phase one or
Right.
or the actual GMP, the bulk of the 20 some odd million or whatever the GMP will eventually be. Right.
We'll be bringing that to the board hopefully for March.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's in March.
Anything else, John? Because I had pulled this too. Dorothy, if you can go to your responses to court questions.
All right, that takes me one more minute. I didn't have it.
It's actually on 9.08, or sorry, 9.07.
And then go down to number 8.
Okay.
That's it there. 8A. What I found with this main write-up and reviewing this is that I was lacking a whole bunch of information for what we were really trying to accomplish. And the way your response is written up here, it gave me all the information. I never would have pulled it to have a question. So my suggestion is take this effort or have somebody that's putting these cover pages together about the project. And if that's the information we're getting that's that detailed to fill in some of the blanks that we're going to question, we don't have a question. Under B, I don't think even the answer told me why what we're paying for in some of these cases is picking up any project time. I mean, like concrete, if we're paying, you usually don't pay for concrete until it's delivered to the job. You don't kind of advance pay for concrete. You advance pay for windows, air conditioning units, generators, things that need deposit, and you don't get them ordered until the deposit's there. So when we're advance paying for concrete, I don't get that.
We're not actually paying the advanced concrete. Go ahead, Angel. I'm sorry.
For procuring any concrete.
Okay.
But it's in this phase.
It's not that you're paying for concrete, but you're paying for the rebar, for the shop drawings.
Yeah, but not for Pine Grove.
Okay.
So the only thing with Pine Grove, besides the early procurement of long lead items, Dave, is the fact that we have to set up a temporary camping area, temporary play area, and a temporary walkway. Maybe that's a little bit of concrete, but it's very little.
Yeah, no, I was mixing these up with the other ones.
With
Right.
Brook, yeah. It's also his.
Yeah.
Okay.
In PC 7, we did say concrete. That was for the purchase of services.
Okay.
So that they could buy the materials, not the concrete materials, but the accessories and the shop drawings and things like that.
Okay. All right, that's all I had on PC8 then. Need a motion for PC8?
I make a motion to move PC8 to the board without objection.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mike Guida. Questions or comments?
I stuttered as long as I could.
All right, go ahead, poll us, Dorothy.
Bill Hill,
Yes.
David Porter,
Yes.
Mike Simon,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Galfand,
Yes.
Mike Guida.
Yeah.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Tom Berger,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we are down to in progress FCA work update.
Okay. Again, as I always say, I'm going to go fast, and then you all laugh because I never do. But I'll do the best I can. Let's say the updates. We're taking in a lot of money. We're taking in a lot of money. I can always have Leanne weigh in on that. But we're spending out as quickly as we can. We of course have, as I mentioned earlier, we're having quite a challenge with our material shortages, material delays, any number of different things. And I can go into some of those details in a second. But we are still continuing on at a pretty good pace of the program. Next slide. I leave this up because I know that all of our contractors and architects want to see it, but everybody knows that this is posted on the public board docs. So if you're looking for what projects are coming up next, and you can see the differentiation between the blues and the reds, which are the reds are the ones that we are going through continuing services with our architects and our CMs because they're smaller dollar value projects, and the blues are the RFP process. Next slide. Okay, this is the slide that scares you all at CORC because we need to let you know what's coming up and going to be on your agenda. So while this month was only 2 GMPs, those early work, next month we've got at least 5, assuming we stay on pace. And then you can see West Riv and Sandpiper in March, and then Winbrook, that's Angels Holding School and Modernization coming up in April, June, but we'll get to that in a second. Next slide. Yeah, these are our development activities. Again, I can't applaud our design team and working with the purchasing department on, it's nonstop. It's nonstop. They're constantly putting out new work and pushing these things forward. So kudos. Moving on. Again, you guys can read these things. I don't need to go through all these ideas. Our design team really pushing forward a lot of the facility renewals. You'll see a bunch of the big GMPs coming now, of course, because as I mentioned earlier this morning, the point is we're going to be cranking right now in order to get GMPs ready so that they'll be approved by March and April so that contractors have time to procure and everything ready for May and June. So we get a productive summer. Lots of work going on these. If you can turn to, I want to say maybe it's the second page. One little, oh no, it must be the third page. Third page, Jupiter Middle School. I wanted to tell, I get to tell my story for a change. I love what I do, and I think what we do is a really important part. I know we're ancillary to teaching kids, but sometimes what we do, we really get to have that joy. I've never had this happen. The Jupiter Middle School, over Christmas break, our contractor went in and replaced the hallway lights. Now, if you've ever seen the Jupiter Middle School, it's like Crestwood. They have those coffered ceilings, and they're weird lights, and they're 6x2s instead of 4x2s or something like it, or 6x1s or something. And it's always been really poorly lit. This principal, Miss Hasty, has been wanting this for years, was begging, desperate to get the hallways well lit. And again, you think, well, the hallways is not a classroom. But we got them done. We got them redone over the Christmas break. And I was so excited. I actually got a call from the principal to tell me how appreciative she was for all that effort that our contractor went through working over Christmas break to get that done. So that when the kids came back in January, it was like a new school. And we say, sometimes it's the little things. Sometimes it's lighting in the classroom. In this case, the principal had to express her appreciation for the fact that it was lighting in a hallway makes everything so much easier. It makes it easier to administer a school. And so I'd never had that happen to me from a principal. So I wanted to applaud the team that did that work, because it's a great feeling, and a great feeling to know that we're impacting the kids directly. So moving on, obviously you can see quite a bit of work going on in these projects. Everything except Dwyer, because the SPA is not really working on it.
That SPA is amazing.
Yeah, the SPA is amazing. Yeah. Lots of photos. Again, please feel free to take a look. There's your fire alarm cabinet.
Fire alarm cabinet.
Okay, exterior painting at Dreyfus. That's part of our TDR program, but also part of our intent to improve the schools, and we're going to continue working on this. We've got painters that are working diligently to improve the exterior as well. We're even moving towards painting the interiors of schools, painting classrooms,
giving that breath of fresh air, because it really does make a difference.
Now, is that CM work or is that maintenance work?
That one actually happens to end up being CM work.
Okay.
But yes, in schools where we don't have the perimeter of the exterior painting, we are using maintenance contracts to do that. But by and large, we're trying to get them all done on the CMs, because if we do waterproofing, that's where we consider painting on exterior.
We're not using elastomeric paint, are we?
No.
Okay, good. That's the right answer.
No. Okay, I'm really excited. I have Angel here, so he can always talk about it. But again, I don't want to belabor this. This is our new high school. And as you'll notice, it's now being referred to as Dr. Joaquin Garcia High School. And of course, because Angel Garcia is our SPA, that's why it had to be named Joaquin Garcia High School.
They got a school named after.
Yeah, we're building a school named after the SPA. No, I'm kidding. Excellent progress on this site. Angela, did you want to add anything? I mean, we're on target for completion.
Really quickly, and I apologize for not having interior pictures to show, but basically we're completely energized. We have the chillers have started and have been flushed and they're cooling, and we got building 1, which is that first building you see there, completely cooled. We're getting moisture tests right now to start VCT flooring. We're also climatizing the wood flooring in the gymnasium. And the rest of the building, behind it, building 2, the backside of it, the cafeteria, is getting ready now for tile, and kitchen equipment will follow it. The auditorium right now, by the next 2 weeks, we'll have scaffolding down. All of the overhead, MEP and architectural acoustical panels and everything else has been completed. So we're in the process of taking down that scaffolding in the next 2 weeks, and we'll be starting the flooring and seating in the auditorium. So right now, it's the actual buildings themselves are pretty much on track, and we're trying to stay ahead with the site as well. You can see the football field over there with the stadium, with the bleachers on either side, and the track is about ready to be paved. The tennis courts have been paved, and you can't see it there, but fencing has gone up around it. And right behind it, there's going to be some volleyball courts as well. Parking, the only parking that is not asphalted yet is the one there on the bottom of the page, which is 47th, in front of the school.
Yeah, there you go. Right there.
That area has not been paved yet, but it's being paved, I believe, next week. But the rest of it has the first width of asphalt, and all the play fields have been graded, practice fields, baseball, softball, and football fields. So I'm making good progress on it.
It's on track for easy opening August. Okay.
You just curse you.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Virginia, right?
Virginia?
Yes, I thought you might be interested to know where the Boundaries Committee is on setting these boundaries. We've been meeting several times. We've done several maps. We're meeting again tonight on Plan 7. This is affecting so many high schools and moving so many students around. We're trying to do our very, very best. If you're all interested, we're meeting again tonight at 5 o'clock. I think you can dial in if you wanted to hear all of the parents who want to stay at their own schools or want to go to a different school. It's an interesting process.
Interesting is one way to put it. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, the next school that I have up here is the West Point Middle School. We used to refer to it as 17 PP, or some people called it Sunset Palms Middle School before it was given a name, because it's right adjacent, the property adjacent to Sunset Palms Elementary. As you can see up in the top left there, Aaron Howard's our SPA on this project, and Aaron's been moving this along quite well. This is Moss Construction, and they are doing a fabulous job, just as Pirtle is doing an incredible job on Joaquin Garcia High School. You can see that the parking lot's already laid out. The area that's down there, where everything's laid out, that's ultimately all the courts, the play courts, and the fields. But as you can see, the buildings are all fully constructed and dried in, with the same intent of being completed by, I'll say, June, for opening in August.
And
this
they
is
are,
the official name of this now? It didn't
it is
go to
the
a person's name.
That is correct. It is,
Okay.
and it's not even the West Point Beach Middle School. It's the West Point,
West Point
Middle School.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I guess I'll just get into it now. The next two slides that I have up are the challenged schools, Grove Park modernization and the Malaluka modernization. Both of those schools have been in construction since the start of the summer this past year, and they are the ones that are suffering the most on the material availability. The high school and the middle school had moved forward well ahead of these two. Unfortunately, these two are at a place now where there's a good chance that these schools will not be available to be open in August as we had intended. As you can see up there on Grove Park, it even says, I think the generator was scheduled for delivery in late 2023. As Leanne pointed out, she's learned all about switchgear because our switchgear is probably the latest piece of equipment. Grove Park being slightly behind Malaluka, but nonetheless, both schools are far enough behind where what you see now is simply all the panels are poured at Malaluka. Almost all the panels are poured at Grove Park. And one of our challenges, who'd have thought, getting a crane. We can't tilt panels up. We've had the panels out at Malaluka for several months, and we couldn't get cranes to be able to do so throughout the state. So we just got our crane at Malaluka the other day. I think they were flying them yesterday or today, first panels at Malaluka. And Grove Park is using the same vendor, and they're using the same crane. So they can't do it until the 2+ weeks of them flying Malaluka's project. So you can kind of see the challenges we're having, and that's just on the early stages. We're also having challenges with our vendors who are having staffing problems. Again, I'd like to say, if I threw it all on materials, it'd be one thing, but we're even having challenges with electricians and MEP trying to get staff to be able to do the work. So it's a challenge all the way around. I'm letting you know this because what I want to let you know in the big picture is we're working with administration and the board, advising them that this is very possible that we will be delayed in opening it for August. That affects all sorts of different things. We've got contingency plans in place to continue. We believe we will be done by December. Now we know we will be done by December for both of these schools. So we're trying to consider whether to do a December opening and whether or not to delay the start of the next round of schools. And I say that because Grove Park and Malaluka are currently in holding schools. Grove Park is in Lincoln, and Malaluka is currently at a holding school at Crestwood Middle. Those two holding schools, Lincoln and Crestwood, are going to be the holding schools for Winbrook and for West Riviera Elementary. Those are the ones that will start up next year. We would start those, we're expecting to start those in May. This year, this calendar year. But if we can't get the kids out until December, then there is the challenge of having to delay the start of Winbrook and West Riv. And with that, that would ultimately lead to a delay in completion of those two. So we're working through all the details and lots of logistical challenges to get through. But our focus is we don't go anywhere until we get Grove Park and Malaluka done. And both contractors have been, we've had extensive meetings, internal staff meetings, as well as several meetings with both sets of contractors at Grove Park and at Malaluka to do everything they can to double up, triple up, and whatnot. Yes.
What are the CMs?
Grove Park is Thornton Construction, and Malaluka is Pirtle Construction.
Thank you.
And Pirtle's slightly ahead. And when I say slightly ahead, I'm talking about 2 weeks. But neither one is in a state where we feel comfortable to say. And again, I don't want to compare them with each other, nor do I want to compare them with other projects. But that's what we do. We kind of have to live based on what we've done in the past.
And I'll use Blue Lake as an example. Last year, we started Blue Lake the May before. And by January, by this time last year, Blue Lake was fully tilted up, dried in, and moving on interiors. We're not there yet. And Blue Lake, while they did a fabulous job, even Blue Lake was challenged to make sure that they were done by June and July so that we were able to open in August. That's what's leading us to feel that we're not going to be able to.
Blue Lake was moss?
Blue Lake was moss.
Okay.
Yeah, the challenge was getting the switchgear on time, which we had to carry up in the game.
Well, hi, was I called on?
I'm sorry.
Now you are.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It says that the delays in the crane and that the crane is being used at one school or the other school. Is there just one crane? Is that like a subcontractor?
It is one subcontractor who's using a crane, the same crane company. And the crane, what I'll say is that the crane companies are very few. Drawing a blank on the two, Ziegler and
Merchant. Merchant is one.
Anyway, there are very few crane companies, and but we've been working with both contractors for the last 2 to 3 months to kind of stand on their shoulders and say, what is going on? Why can't we go to Georgia? What about Tennessee? Do they not have cranes out there? And they have been knocking down all the bushes to try to find cranes. And literally just this week, one of the two contractors said, oh yeah, we were just able to get another contractor, another crane company. Now they're gonna have 2 cranes. So they're probably gonna try to double up their services. We'll see how that works. But they have been diligent in trying to get cranes from elsewhere. Because again, it's one of that's a critical path component. So, but that's one of many. If I were to just blame, concrete was another one. Even just getting our panels poured. I mentioned earlier, both of these contractors expected to pour 4 pours a week over a like 3 or 4 week period. 4 pours a week to get all their panels, 120 panels completed. The concrete companies, again, we're limited by the concrete companies available. The concrete companies have cut back and rationed. They basically said to our contractors, yeah, you'll get 2 pours a week. And instead of getting 500 or 600 yards, you're only going to get 300 yards because that's all they can afford because they're trying to divvy it up and make sure they keep all their clients happy as well. So that slows us down. And then, you know, occasionally you hit something where we set up the pump, we've got everything going, and the trucks just don't show up. And that just means you miss an entire week. That pour doesn't happen until the following Tuesday. So, Angel, I know you wanted to say something on this.
Just a quick note on that. So on the high school, even though we're ahead of that curve there with the concrete for the last 4 months or 5 months, Myrtle has been struggling to get concrete scheduled out there for walkways and other miscellaneous pours. And they're scheduling them 3 weeks out, and they're limiting the yardage on them. And if they miss that, if they don't get all the yardage, they're not able to, they don't commit. The concrete companies will not commit to the yardage. They schedule them another 3 weeks out. So it's been an ongoing delay on concrete, but the areas are ready. It's just we cannot get it. So it's across the board. So I meant to say that.
Would you remind me why there is this concrete problem? I know you.
No, that's the big mystery. I have been told it's a shortage of drivers. I really doubt that. It's cement and it's aggregate and it's stuff that comes locally. So I haven't talked to anybody that's had the magic answer for why concrete is an issue.
Leanne?
I mean, I've had it on my own project where the contractor was told for a 5,000 square foot house slab that he was going to get, 12 truckloads or more by 10 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, he had 3. And by noontime, the concrete company said, yeah, I can't give you any more concrete. So he had a slab that was, quarter of the way poured. Sorry, can't give you any more concrete. Leanne.
I was just going to add, I'm talking to the bankers and the underwriters because we're lined up to do the next borrowing for the next group of projects. And we're delaying that because when these projects are delayed, the next projects are delayed. When I reached out and talked with them, they're hearing it across the country. It's not unique to Palm Beach County. They said, yeah, we've heard that with other clients in other states. So it's, I hate to just say it's supply chain issues, but it's happening all over the place. That's the reason you see these unusual items coming through for this month where we're trying to place orders years earlier than we would normally place orders for things like switchgear. Trying to get ahead because we're consistently having trouble getting anything and everything. We could talk about paper, talk about away from construction. We're having issues getting everything at the district. So it's not even limited just to construction. It's not just local. It's everything. Just challenges. I think a lot of it has to do with the transportation network personally, but you get different answers every time you ask the question to a different person.
And I'm impressed. Again, Leanne knows these answers. I mean, the item that we're talking about, we talked about Winbrook earlier. And you'd say, well, why are we buying our material early on Winbrook if it's going to delay? Well, what we were planning on, Winbrook was only going to buy us an extra 3 to 4 months. Buying it early might not have even saved us if we started Winbrook right on time this coming summer. That's why we still need Winbrook to go now, because we may need 16 months for some pieces of equipment that we need to get placed orders now and whatnot. Now, what I will say is, Owen, have I missed any other questions? I think, did you have?
Sam, you got your hand up?
I was just going to mention, I think it was about 10 months ago or 10 months ago, one of the CORC members had mentioned right at the end of our meeting that beware, there's going to be a shortage of sand, so you better get your concrete lined up. And I don't know what happened to all of that, but apparently that may be rolled into some of the problems you have now.
Yeah, somebody had told me, as Leanne said, one of the stories that I had heard recently was silica. I didn't realize that was an issue. I thought,
Michael.
My office got a call the other day from an electrician asking us to look at a sand quarry in Central Florida. Why their 400 horsepower motor is fried up. So that sand quarry is what feeds some of the concrete. So the sand quarries shut down. So and maybe the issue now.
And we know that we of course know a lot of our international challenges. China produces a lot of that which we get. We've been working with a lot of the air handlers, the HVAC companies, and there is what you come to find out is our entire global economy, in some cases, are reliant upon very few groups, very few companies. When they get hit with a labor shortage, all of a sudden everything stops. So even that is something that we're experiencing now. That may be just a global issue, but we're certainly feeling that as well.
Frank.
You know, it may be my fault, but we're supposed to, one of these days, get around a discussion of small business and when we should use small businesses and when we shouldn't. Give them the added benefit in the submission. And it may be a factor in some of these situations where the larger companies, some of which are also more than just local Florida, can bring in things that they're aware of or where to get that the small companies aren't. And I think we have to keep that in mind to balance what we're doing.
Well, if I may, Mr. Simon, I would reject that simply in that the vendors that you're dealing with in construction. Now, that's not to say purchasing department and some of their other vendors in other areas, it might be different. But for us, when we're dealing with in construction, we don't contract, by and large, we don't contract with small contractors. Virtually every one of our projects, we're dealing with large, statewide, even nationwide companies. Companies like Hurdle or Moss or White's. These are companies that are nationwide. Yes, maybe their subs are impacted by it, but they're financially backed and I guess logistically backed by the wherewithal of those large companies. And from what we've been hearing from our projects, it's not the little guys that are necessarily complaining. It's the big guys who I expected would have more leverage. Those are the ones that have done everything they can. Like I said, the cranes. You'd think, how could Pirtle have a hard time getting a crane? How could Thornton? These are nationwide companies. They're fighting with the same other nationwide companies to get the same cranes. So I think small businesses aren't really playing an impact, or aren't having an impact on that situation here. What we're experiencing is, and it's across the board. In past, we've come to you and said, "Oh, look, steel's really high. We're going with concrete now," or "Oh, concrete's getting high. We're going back to steel." Right now, we're generally across the board on virtually every discipline, every trade, and even labor shortages are having impacts on us, which really don't necessarily translate to a small business versus a large business. It's happening across the board. So
okay. To continue, I guess basically in summary, you're telling us that Melaleuca and Grove Park are going to have delays, and you'll be back to us with a plan.
Yes, absolutely. This is getting rolled out. We're obviously we're informing the board. We're working with the academics, because this is a huge impact. These schools will not be moving this summer as they would expect into a brand new school, and we have every intention of moving them by December. And all the logistical challenges go along with that. We'll have to work through that. And even Leanne said one of the other challenges is we've got to figure out how to borrow, because if we're going to delay the purchases of some of these GMPs, that affects her. But in fact, I need Winbrook's money now. I mean, even though I'm going to delay the project, I still need the money for a lot of our early procurement stuff now to be able to make sure that we stay on track no matter what. Because I don't want to actually start up next year's schools late and then run into the same problem of shortage of time. So
I would just recommend it for each month going forward until we get to end of the year, that you keep this on your update to give us monthly updates of the progress and the updated intended completions.
Absolutely. And I fully intended to do a regular update. And in fact, if necessary, bringing in some of the contractors and walking through if they're concerns or questions that you guys have on how we're proceeding. So
in other words, we can browbeat them to say, how come you're not getting done? Yeah, I don't think we need to do that.
No, they're getting enough of that from me.
They want to get done as fast as everybody else wants them to get done so they can get on to the next job.
Yep. So Melaleuca, and you'll notice, and the same position where we've got two existing buildings that are under renovation, and then a whole bunch of panels laying on the ground there. So they're all being tilted up. I think they're being tilted today. Next one is Delray Full Service. Again, another project that's been ongoing for quite a while. The new building, that's what you're looking at right there. That was the one that suffered a lot of the material delays and shortages. So we're anticipating this is going to be open by March. Classes open in April. What you don't see is the gym renovation. And next meeting, I will make sure that we have photos of that gym, the existing gym, the historic gym at former Carver High School, is quite impressive now. The work that's gone on in there with Roebling is a testament to the great work needed for that facility to revive it. So
on delayed projects, our contract says you have a completion deadline date or liquidated damages.
Yes.
So how are we already starting to address obviously not being able to make the completion dates?
Well, at some point I'd turn the subject over to this guy to my left. But what I will say is that we've been basically stressing to all of our SPAs that all the contractors need to follow the contractual terms. They have to give us notification. If there are impacts that are outside of their control, per the contract, we've all gone through this, countless times. They need to be giving us notice, and then within a certain duration, they need to give us the supporting backup. And those backups are coming in. Okay. The challenge is we haven't felt all the full impact yet.
No.
So right now, if these guys want to give me a change order for days, and for impacted delays, I'd say, great, that means you're done. Because I always learn from my mentor that you come to me one time with a change order for additional days. You don't come back to me later on with another one for the same delay. So you wait until you have all the impacts felt. And unfortunately, we have not.
Right.
They have notified us that there's been delays and they're working on paperwork, and they've kept in communications about what's going on with the cranes. A lot of them got sent over after the hurricane to Fort Myers. And that was part of the delay. So things like that, it just exacerbates it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Okay, next one. Additions and remodelings. We've got a couple of core expansions. These are those cafeteria expansions and main offices and such that we're working on. Del Prado's one that we're moving on, and Seminole Trails. Seminole Trails is we're working on their main office, and that's a huge impact too. In addition to their cafeteria. Dorothy, minor projects. She doesn't do anything. So I mean, there's just a few projects on here. Oh my gosh, if you only knew the minions, we refer to her people that work for her as the minions because they're just scurrying around. They've got it's got like 100 projects ongoing at all times. And you can see some of the projects. You got a bleacher project on the bottom right, equestrian trails, marquee that just went in there. In Forest Hill, we have some sidewalks that are going in to improve the student circulation getting onto campus. Big doings with the community, with the city of West Palm Beach.
So the bleachers on the right are not for the elementary school.
No, that's for
Yeah, I
Olympic
didn't think
Heights.
so.
That's Olympic Heights, I think.
Okay, all right.
I think if you scroll up to the one before, the fourth one down, fifth
Okay,
one down is
never mind. I
bleacher.
just wanted to make sure we
Heights.
weren't building a gymnasium with bleachers in elementary.
Yeah, no. And that's it for me. Well, we're way over. So I was going to have Angel do a little presentation on Pine Grove, but next month, well, if it's okay, Angel, I'll ask you to come on back because what I will say is the delays that we're talking about on these two projects, and then the next two, Pine Grove is wedged right in there. The reason why Pine Grove is not delayed is because it has a holding school on campus. So they're just going to move. Actually, they're going to leave that kids in the existing buildings and build the new construction around that. He's going to build a little temporary parking lot in the back and move them in there. And once the new buildings are built, over the summer, they'll move them in, knock the old building down in the parking lot. So that's the long and short of what Angel's going to present to you next month. But next month, I'll let him do the pretty pictures of that PGA is working on.
We need to make little holes through the fences for the kids to be able to watch construction because they'll be the future contractors.
That's right. Got to incentivize these kids. Let them know it's the great work.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for Dave? We're going to move along. No questions. All right. Follow-up. Dorothy, we didn't have any follow-up, did we?
Actually, Barbara was going to do a bit of a follow-up.
I do have a quick follow-up. There was some discussion at the last CORC meeting about adding a step to our GMP negotiation process to request a letter from the architects accepting the clarifications, exemptions, and that page in the document, and construction purchasing, facilities construction, and our legal team work together. And we did develop some language. It has been added to our current RFPs. So it will be a conditional requirement for going forward. But just keep in mind that this is for new RFPs that are advertised now. So you may not see it for a while, but having said that, we have implemented this step right now currently, and we're just requesting rather than requiring. And so far, everyone seems to be acquiescing. So it's,
I think there was one today and today.
yes, both were in there today, and for January's 4 that you have coming up next month, we'll already have those too. So
Now that's on the RFP. Is it also being added to our contracts with architects to make sure that they're known?
it's in the contract section. I'm sorry. It's in the contract section of the RFP. So when the RFP gets advertised, it gets advertised with the RFP and the contract, a template or contract attached to it. That's I refer to that as our RFP.
Okay, but it still becomes part of the legal document.
Yeah, the very first paragraph of our contract defines the term contract documents, which includes the RFP, the responses, and all that stuff. So we do have a catch-all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually in Article 5.14.
Okay.
Item 2.
For next meeting, if you can just give us a copy of that page and make it part of our court document so we can see what the language says.
Yeah, we'll upload it.
Do you want me to just add it to this as a follow-up on?
No, follow up for the next meeting. That way we have this
Okay.
part of our documents that we download and review.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good. Glad that got worked out. Okay. Anything else to discuss? How about minutes? Anybody have issues with minutes? I thought they were very complete. We still have
I just wonder about the discussion between what we all read in the minutes concerning AT&T and what staff thinks should be in the minutes, how they interpret it. If we approve these, we are approving it as we discussed.
Right. Your minutes. Well, these are our minutes, and I think they were correct representation, motion and the discussion.
Okay. I would just like to have them go through and look for some of those typos that I didn't make note of all of them, but there's some spelling and typo problems. But otherwise, minutes were good.
Okay. Anyone else with minute issues?
I second.
Okay. I don't think we need to vote on that because there were no changes to the minutes.
Okay.
All right. We are down to the new 6.02 election of officers for the next year.
I nominate David Porter for chair.
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Mr. Shannon.
Okay.
I nominate the representative from California.
Oh, good. I don't have the chair anymore.
How much are you willing to trade for this, sir?
60 minutes an hour. Going rate. Anybody else want to run the meetings? Any other nominations? Why did you all put yourself on mute?
Move the question.
I move the nominations be closed.
All right. With no other nominations, I guess you guys need to be polled to vote.
Yeah,
I guess
we need a poll, right?
you need a poll. So I guess Dorothy, poll for my nomination.
Okay, Bill Hookhill,
Yes.
David Porter,
I guess yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter. Ken,
He's thinking about it.
I see that. Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Absolutely.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Tom Berger,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Definitely, yes.
Ken,
Okay. Thank you for your vote of confidence, or that you just don't want to run the meetings.
Do we need to run, vote for?
Yeah, then I make a
vice?
nomination for Virginia Ferris for vice chair.
Second.
Got Sam Shannon as the second.
Any other nominations?
I move the nominations be closed.
All right, then go ahead and poll list, Dorothy.
Bill Hookhill,
Yeah.
Dave Porter,
Yes.
Frank Simon,
Yes.
John Cheshire,
Yes.
Ken Lassiter,
Yes.
Leah Gaines,
Yes.
Lou Doctor,
Yes.
Michael Gelfand,
Yes.
Michael Guida,
Yes.
Sam Shannon,
Yes.
Tom Berger,
Yes.
Virginia Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Review.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Review and set our next agenda. One thing for staff that I don't want to get forgotten that we had requested a while ago, I guess through diversity, was the discussion about SBA point systems and how it gets determined of what projects should be SBA emphasized, and do we put kind of limits on architectural contracts and construction contracts where we just remove the SBA emphasis? We had asked for that, and then we had the Vicky, so that got pushed aside. So I just don't want us to, I mean, even if it's not next month, I still want to keep it on the radar that we do get.
Certainly, absolutely. We have Patrick Christopherson is the acting director, and I'm certain that Patrick, myself, and especially Mr. Sanchez will certainly participate in a discussion whether or not it goes next month. We'll see what the kind of workload looks like.
Yep.
But yes.
Leah.
Yes. I have a little bit of an issue with how that was worded. I don't think we can remove or make a recommendation to remove the SBE requirements. That's a policy that's already adopted by the school district. So I thought the last meeting, which was postponed due to apparently the death of Dickie Sykes, was an update on how the program operates.
Correct.
It really wasn't about removing anything.
and it's not necessarily removing it. No, and maybe if that's what was, it's not removing. It might be adjusting. It might be a question of, do we set everything at 25% for this type of construction contract, or are there variable pieces? I know Dickie had previously, we'd been working on tiered SPE program, micros and minis, and then standard SPEs with, and how that would go about. That may be a working discussion as well.
But that's not within the purview of CORC. That's within the purview of the SWMBE Advisory Committee. That's not really within our purview.
And I don't think CORC was necessarily going to be dictating, planning on dictating anything, more so listening and understanding what was going to be presented, and if diversity was leaning towards any recommended changes based on our experiences previously. If we've noticed opportunities to get more FBE opportunities, things like that. I think that was the intent that Dickie had for coming forth and presenting to us.
Leah, what was brought up just as an example before is there doesn't seem to be limits with diversity for the size of, let's say, a construction project that would get some SBE bonus points. So would we want an SBE building a $35 million new school? They can build it, but there really shouldn't be extra points for an SBE over that of one of the major contractors. That was the only point of discussion, that we wanted diversity to come in and explain to us how they would establish what projects and what level get the SBE bonus points. That's all.
Okay, as long as you're getting the clarification. I thought you were saying whether or not it should be removed, but that's fine.
No. It was that clarification, and to see if there is kind of a different level that different points are given out, because that is our purview when construction projects are given out to architects and contractors, to figure out that we're getting the best match of a large contractor for a large job, and not necessarily maybe a little lesser experienced SBE contractor getting bonus points to get that same large job. That's all.
Lou had a question.
You had your hand up.
Is anybody following up with the new school board member for his 2 CORC representatives?
I think one is still Leah. And I think then there was just one missing member.
And good, but it is a good point, Mr. Doctor. I will reach out to Tony Lynn with the board office to verify that they go through the board member and let him know that he does in fact have 2 members, one of which is appointed already, and he may choose to meet with Ms. Gaines and walk through his intents.
So that'll be reflected on our attendance sheet on the website.
The way the CORC policy is set up is until a new board member appoints new people, the existing CORC members remain CORC members, which is why Leah is still on here today, and she may get reappointed by the new board member, and then she would remain on here instead of being replaced by another person of that board member's choosing.
Okay, because Dr. Robbins is still listed on the sheet.
Fair enough. Good point. We'll have that correct.
Okay, that we can correct. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Anything else that we can think of we want specifically for the next meeting?
This next meeting is on February 9th.
Okay. Who had a hand up? Frank. No.
Just to go back for a minute, I don't think anybody is talking about getting rid of SPEs. Preference, it's just aware. And the one thing I think we need is, what is the current written official policy about when projects become subject to SPE or don't become subject to SPE a lot having to do maybe with the size of the project or the complexity. And I think we need to know what the current wording of any policy related to that is, and then we can discuss should it be modified.
You can refer to the policy, and forgive me, I was about to try to look it up. I don't remember what the policy number is. There is a policy for diversity, but really it is not CORC's purview to determine what Ms. Gaines was saying before, to determine what the policy should say. The diversity department works with that, and forgive me, Ms. Gaines, the diversity committee on that policy. CORC can weigh in on the procedures.
And there is not a specific policy that says they should have a certain percentage or a certain number or anything like that.
That's a procedure within.
Is that we have a department and a committee that works to make sure that we have diversity.
Like, we can hold all of that as part of a discussion when we get diversity and we talk over what exists, how stuff is decided, and then CORC can provide its input, whether it feels any adjustments might be to be considered. That's all. Okay, if no one has anything else, then we're going to make closing out within 5 minutes of our limit, and we are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations on the officers being reelected. Have a good week.